Hello, my name is Gabby and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, then welcome to my channel, and today's video is going to be my April 2026 reading wrap-up. Yeah, I don't know, this month went fast. I still haven't caught up to the manga that I would usually read as they update because I just forgot, which is partly life and partly because I got wrapped up in a different series later on in the month. But first, I will have the content warnings I can find linked down below in the description along with links to some resources, and let's go ahead and get into it. We're gonna start this off with Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. Legendborn follows our main character Bree Matthews. After the death of her mother, she was accepted into a residential program at UNC, and this seems like it's going to be a good escape from everything that is going on in her life up until she witnesses an attack by a magical creature during her first night on campus, and this is an attack that introduces her to a secret society of Legendborn, who are individuals who hunt down these creatures, and it also introduces her to a powerful mage who is calling himself Merlin. This mage attempts to wipe Bree's memory of what she saw that night, however his failure to successfully do so unlocks both Bree's own magic and a hidden memory of the night her mother died. Bree then has to decide how far she is willing to go to get the truth. I finished my reread of Legendborn this month, except this time I went for the audiobook because I just don't have the time or the energy for long physical reads right now. And I do want to eventually read Oathbound, but I need to reread the first two first, and this is just faster for me. And yeah, I still think it's one of the best YA fantasy series ever written, and I love its blend of real life, of academia, and secret society, and fantasy, and legend. I also got really invested in the relationships all over again, but I will say I do think like some of the side characters really did slip away from me this time around. Like I do think that my first read of this book back in 2021 was stronger overall, but this was still really good and also very much needed. I'm very excited to get back into Bloodmarked in the future. And then we have The Moth Keeper by Kay O'Neill. And this is a middle grade fantasy graphic novel that follows the new Moth Keeper who protects the lunar moths that allow the night lily flower to bloom, which her village needs in order to keep thriving. And this takes place when she decides to take a break from the moon and see the sun for the first time. Kay O'Neill is one of, if not my favorite graphic novel artist and writer ever. I love The Song for You and I love the T-Dragon series. They are so beautiful. I love their fantasy aesthetic, and I think they have incredibly sweet messages and relationships woven into them, and everything has just been super cozy overall, and this definitely felt very similar to me in all of those senses. I love the fantasy in this. I will say I think that if I think about it like a little bit too much, a little bit too deeply, I might find some holes that I don't necessarily like want to find, but like I don't want to do that. Like I just want to love and enjoy this for what this is and what it gave me. Like I don't think it's perfect. I think its overall message surrounding loneliness in particular could have landed a lot harder for me. I don't think that they fully stuck the landing when their big moment came to do that. And then it just kind of ended, and again, I do like what we got here. I do like what this gave me, but I also can't help but imagine like what could have been here, at least in this case. But I love the characters. Again, super sweet individually, but also super sweet relationships in here. I loved and adored the art style so much, especially combined with like the loneliness exploration and the fantasy. It was so cozy. I could easily see myself pick this back up like late at night because it just has that energy, and I would love to see it animated one day if that animation could still capture the magic of this graphic novel. But yeah, I gave this 4.75 out of 5 stars. Okay, so we're gonna skip ahead in the month for a second so I can review the last series back to back, because that is just going to be easier in this case. But first we do have Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. And this takes place in the early 2020s when global climate change and economic crisis lead to social chaos and California becomes full of dangers. Our main character lives inside a gated community with her family, sheltered from the surrounding anarchy, as she must make her voice heard in order to protect her loved ones from imminent disaster, which her community ignores, and a fight for survival soon leads to something more. So I read an excerpt from a different story from this author back in college, and I really liked it, and ever since then I've been wanting to get into Octavia E. Butler stories more. And I saw this one making some rounds recently because it was written in the past and is now currently set in our current timeline, and that was super interesting and also like devastating because Octavia E. Butler predicted some things that are our current reality. I also thought that this book talked about religion in a really interesting way as well. So I was invested in the story. It's apocalypsy and dystopian, but I didn't really feel like I got to know any of the characters except for the main character, and there were a couple that I thought that was more necessary for. But there's also a relationship in here with a very large, uncomfortable age gap that I didn't think was needed at all. So yeah, I don't think that I'm necessarily going to continue on with this series in particular, but I did get enough from this book to know that I want to read more from this author. But until then, I'm giving Parable of the Sower 3 out of 5 stars. So after finishing The Moth Keeper, my brain was like, I need more graphic novels and comfort, which led me back to Avatar: The Last Airbender. So I basically picked up where I left off in the comics, and that starts with the Promised Trilogy. And this does take place after the animated series leaves off, so if you haven't watched or finished that, I would stop here if you care about spoilers, because while I won't be intentionally spoiling anything within the comics, I do think that it is kind of impossible to not pick up something here from the show within the covers or just within the descriptions of the comics themselves. But yes, The Promise. This takes place when the Peace of the Four Nations is threatened by a stalemate between Zuko and Earth King Kuei, throwing Zuko and Aang's friendship into the middle of the conflict as the world is quickly heading towards another war. And yeah, this was just like the animated series kept going, but in comic form this time. I do think that that is something that the comics do really well just as a whole, and I do really love and appreciate that. But something that is going to come up here a lot while I'm talking about these will be the pacing, because I feel like with the show you could really settle down more and just really flesh everything out, and that is just kind of something that these comics are not long enough to do for the most part. There is an exception, we will get to it, but yeah, that is going to be unfortunately the case for me in The Promise, especially because this one is very politics focused and there are a lot of thoughts and opinions that the characters have. There are discussions and disagreements, and we're reading them just try to navigate all of this and the state that their world is currently in, and it's also all paired with and woven into personal relationship conflict and promises, and it's all super interesting. There are definitely real life parallels to a lot of this as well, but I would have really liked to have seen this settle down more and just give everything more space to breathe and maybe explore it a little bit further, because there are parts of this I do think moved really fast. But yeah, I do like the way that this expanded upon the series at large. This is my first of like the big storylines and trilogies that the comics have, and it does feel like a really important one that really sets the stage for the ones that come after it. And I ended up giving The Promise 4.25 out of 5 stars. And then we have The Search, which takes place after the events of The Promise when Zuko enlists Team Avatar and an unlikely ally to help uncover what happened to his mother. Once again, it was just like the show but in comic form, and I did think that this one was better paced overall until I got to some very key and important moments in the story that I thought were done way too quickly. But what I love most about this trilogy is that we do finally find out about Zuko's mother, and I enjoyed the mystery and the reveals, and I love what this introduces for the rest of the series moving forward in terms of both new and original characters and just a path ahead of them moving forward. I also really love the design of the spirits. Something about the art style and the designs in this one just like hit a little bit harder for me than usual. And I also gave The Search 4.25 out of 5 stars. Which brings us to The Rift, which follows Aang as he is receiving cryptic messages from Avatar Yang Chen. And while honoring an air nomad holiday with his friends, Aang is led to a refinery which is operating on a land that is sacred to the Airbenders. And they soon find themselves in danger as an ancient spirit awakens with intent to destroy and give vengeance. Okay, so this one is a mix of like some of Toph's absolute worst and also best moments in the series. I mentioned in The Promise that we get a lot of the characters' opinions on things, and there are definitely disagreements, and that is what we see here. And again, this is another one that I would have loved to have seen just like have more space, because the conflict between them does just kind of feel put aside by the end of this, which maybe it'll be addressed again later. I am open to that, but for now I do think that I needed more from this one. So yeah, the combination of Toph's like general behavior towards Aang and his culture and traditions combined with like just Sokka's unfunny jokes in this one. Yeah, not my favorite, but Toph also does have some personal growth and like a really cool and exciting moment. You can also see the beginnings of Legend of Korra in this one as well. The storyline was interesting, and you know, it's still Avatar: The Last Airbender, so I gave it 3.75 out of 5 stars. And then we have Toph Beifong's Metal Bending Academy. Although things are looking bright for the Beifong Metal Bending Academy, Toph can't help but feel like things are a bit dull. And when Sokka and Suki visit and introduce her to some familiar faces, she finds something that may finally be able to give her her spark back. So we're gonna put the more serious storylines to the side for a second for this one. And I will say that after reading The Rift, I was a little bit concerned about this going into it, but yeah, it's its own thing, and I haven't mentioned them yet, but I do really like Toph's students. I think they're really fun. And this gave me more of them. It gave me a little bit of Sokka and Suki together, and it brought back another character from the show, which I thought was fun. And on that note, I really loved how this explored turning what you love and have fun with into a job. It was fun, simple, and accomplished what it wanted to accomplish, and unlike the trilogy so far, I don't have any complaints with the pacing of this. It was solid, and I couldn't think of a reason to not give it 5 stars, so I did. But moving back to the trilogies, we have Smoke and Shadow. And this takes place in the Fire Nation that is being threatened with mysterious figures known as the Kei-Murikage, who were thought to only exist in legend. And they are threatening that the country will perish if Zuko is not removed from the throne. And while the new Ozai society is preparing to make its next move and causing unrest, children are also going missing. And Aang and his friends must do everything that they can in order to save them. I thought that this was really fun. It really zeroes in on the Fire Nation. We get mystery, we get lore, and we get a lot of messy relationship drama. Kind of a love triangle, but kind of not. Again, mess. And we got to see more of characters that we don't necessarily always get to see a lot of, and it makes me excited for some of the one-shot comics that are coming up here, where I am assuming that we will be coming back to some of this. We also got to see more of Zuko as a leader and the politics surrounding him and how his decisions impact people and the Fire Nation, both the good and also the bad. I do think that the pacing was overall better for this trilogy for me, but I do think that I would prefer it a little bit more at the beginning and a little bit more at the end, but it is probably my favorite of the trilogies thus far. It is definitely the one that I had the most fun with. And I gave Smoke and Shadow 4.75 out of 5 stars. And then finally for this video we have the North and South trilogy. And this follows Katara and Sokka after they return home to the Southern Water Tribe to find that it has gone from a small village to a city. And they find out that there is a Northerner behind this change who wants to unify the North and the South, but there is also a Southern rebellion that wants to stop her, and Katara has to navigate all of this and all of her feelings on this to save the home that she loves before it is permanently torn apart. This one felt a little bit like a mix of the Rift and like the beginning of Smoke and Shadow that was kind of just shown in a quick flashback. And we see Katara and Sokka navigate this new version of the home that they once knew that has now been influenced by the Northern Water Tribe. And again, we do see some disagreements and conflicting opinions on all of this between Katara and Sokka, and also just within the Southern Water Tribe as a whole. And again, this is definitely yet another one where you can definitely feel the real world parallels here. And that also includes Katara and how she's feeling throughout the story. But this is unfortunately another one that I do feel like is too fast-paced at times, especially towards the end. I do feel like this one wrapped up too quickly, and it was a really key moment for both the story and for Katara's character, which I do love how much Katara we got in this one. And I also really liked how the action scenes combined with the setting as well. I honestly haven't really landed on a rating for this one. I'm leaning 4 though, so we're just gonna go with that, I guess. So yeah, that is where I am currently at with this series. I do plan to finish it soon, but it has definitely been so fun to get back into this universe and just see all of the characters again. It's one of my favorite series of all time. It is a huge comfort for me. So it's nice that these just even exist, honestly, and I can continue to have them in my life. And the stories have been complex and interesting and serious while still having its heart and fun moments. And I just really love seeing how all of their stories continue and play out. Okay, so that is all that I have for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and answer a question that'll be around here if you want to do that. And hopefully I will see you here next time. Bye.